I mean, that is some serious revolutions. Did you hear the sound on that? I mean, those birds and whatever was going on there, they were ready to revolt. I mean, you know it. It's okay. I know. You're going to be okay. Don't be scared. But first, let's talk Mexico. Revolutions in Mexico. You remember, down in Mexico, joyous Mexico, you can do an old time dance. Yeah, you remember. Mexico. All right, well, we got this guy, Portofino Diaz. Portofino Diaz, okay? And Portofino, this guy was corrupt. The system was corrupt. He kept peasants down. He kept workers down. He kept American Indians down. And their economy was dependent on exports, little investment, and up to 20% actually of their territory was owned by the United States of America. Diaz is eventually driven from power by a whole group of folks. I got some of them right here. Are you ready? You ready for this group? Okay, here's the group. I know you want to see that one more time. So once Obregon is in the picture, he takes over. There actually ends up being a Mexican Constitution of 1917 and a few changes, land reform, limits on foreign ownership because they don't want all these foreign people like the United States of America coming in and owning things, and guarantees on rights of workers. And one of the weird things is that they limited churches owning land. And so there's this group of people called the Cristeros that were Catholic leaders, Catholic believers that were fighting against the revolutionaries for the ability to have land. There's actually been a movie coming out, which I totally can't think of. I think it's because the gray hair that's in here, like, whoa, I touched my head and the gray hair, like, it made the lights go off. That was weird. So yeah, that was the movie For Greater Glory. I don't know, that just randomly showed up on the screen. I don't know how it got there, whatever. But let's see, Mexico, what was the last thing I wanted to say? Here it is. Oh yeah, Mexico became a multi-party democracy, but there's this group called the PRI, which stands for Party of the Institutionalized Revolution. They still ran the show by holding people down, repression here and there. And that's basically Mexico. And you guessed it, now we're going to talk about Russia. So Russia, rioters start calling for changes and political changes. And so the czar finally steps down. And a few things. A liberal type of government is instituted at first in the short term that even has parliamentary rule, very democratic in its thinking. But it doesn't last very long. And so there's a second type of little revolution, get them out. And guess what? The Bolshevik. That was for Jack. The Bolshevik, I totally got like sidetracked. Bolshevik Party that later gets renamed the Communist Party places who as their leader? You guessed it, not John Lennon, but someone known as Lenin. And at the time, you had this group called the Social Revolutionary Party that had a clear majority in the parliament that they had. So Lenin basically says, you know what? Well, we'll just shut down parliament then. because I run the show here. My name is Lenin, and I'll do what I want to do. So he replaced it with the Bolshevik dominated, what is it called? Let's see, Bolshevik dominated Congress of Soviets. Congress of Soviets. So if you ever want to know how to do something the way that you want to do it, follow Lenin's way and just change it. So Western powers start to get concerned about communist success. But specifically, what they start getting concerned about is that Russia, you know what, they don't want to pay their debts. Remember this little money thing? Remember money? They don't want to pay their debts. They keep this money to themselves. And so a bunch of folks show up. Troops get sent by Britain, France, United States, Japan, but for some reason they all back down, and the Civil War goes on from 1918 to 1921. And Lenin does a few things. He redistributes land to the peasantry. He takes over industry with the government, so the government is now running the show with industry and businesses and such. And as a result, famine is on. People are hungry. Unemployment is up. So things aren't looking, really grand for Lenin, and workers are starting to revolt. So what is Lenin going to do? The workers are revolting, but he has to stabilize this Russian communist regime. Well, I'm glad you asked. What's he going to do? Because that's what we're going to talk about next. Well, one of the things he does what he does, is he institutes the Red Army. And people from all walks of life, even those that come from humbler backgrounds, are inspired to be part of the Red Army because now they have a future that they may have not had before. So that's part of the encouragement that keeps the Russian communist regime going, even though people are revolting. He puts in place new economic policy. Now, when we talk about this new economic policy, he says we're going to give freedoms for small business owners and peasant landowners, and temporary. This was temporary, basically in order to give him time to focus on other items. So he knew it wouldn't be a long-term thing, but maybe I could shut these people up for a second so we can keep the Communist Party going. So there was this new Union of Soviet Socialist Republics that were set up by this new constitution. So there's this group of republics called the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And so now Russia is seen as this multinational place, this multinational character of people that are grouped together. But the thing was, even though it's multinational, they didn't give representation to some groups, especially like the Jews. And then of all of these groups, which I probably should have put that as a vocabulary word as well, which is Soviets, which Soviets are these groups of people that meet together. So there's the Supreme Soviet. And the Supreme Soviet is like a parliament, but there's the lights again. Supreme Soviet. Supreme Soviet. Can we get a light going? Woohoo! There we go. We're back. We're back live. Supreme Soviet. Okay, the light didn't go off that time. So Supreme Soviet, basically, it's like parliament, but the communists had power over it. Another thing that happened is education is really being spread by the government, and because of that, literacy expands. People can spell I before E except after C, or when Simon is A as in neighbor and way, unless you're weird, because then you spell the word weird, W-E-I-R-D. But I guess they were writing in Russian, so none of that would have really mattered. And then amongst education, they were also, teaching this belief in the communist way. Because the communist way is the way.